There's a fundamental shift in how joinery works as a trade, and most people haven't embraced it. Joinery has become a design and construct trade, and I'm going to break down how cabinet makers, builders, and architects can use that to their advantage. I'm Charlie. I run a cabinet making business in Melbourne. We focus on complex 6 and 7-figure joinery packages where there's very little room for error. I'll go through the gap that now exists between architectural drawings and a clear production scope, why it exists and why it's nobody's fault, and how it affects the way that builders, cabinet makers, and designers work together. My more experienced colleagues tell me of a time when architectural drawings came complete enough to build from. You could quote a job, win it, and build it without much back and forth. That time has passed. Today, architectural drawings establish intent. They show us what the architect wants to achieve, but rarely do they establish a clear production scope. A drawing showing a bank of drawers may not consider how the drawer then interfaces with a protruding windowsill as it opens. A timber veneer may be specified, but not take into account the grain direction, material yields, or the exact finishing methodology. And here's one we see quite often. A cabinet may be drawn with a really thin metal frame without any consideration for how it's going to be hinged to maintain tight door gaps and make sure it doesn't flex too much. Now, this isn't a criticism of architects. The nature of the work has evolved, and with it, the roles that we each play. The complexity of premium residential joinery has compounded over the last 2 decades. There is now an incredible breadth of materials, hardware options, the need for tight tolerances, as well as integration with services. Many cabinet makers share the view that it takes 10 years to become truly proficient. So how can we expect architects who spend 5 years learning about every trade, every system, every part of a building to reach that level of depth on joinery alone? They can't, and I don't think they should have to. The gap between design intent and production scope isn't a failure of documentation. It's a natural consequence of increasing complexity meeting finite bandwidth. Architects are responsible for the whole building. We're focused on one trade. It only makes sense that we take ownership for different parts of the problem. And that's why joinery has become a design and construct trade. We take design intent and resolve it into something that's buildable, testing it against our buildability, functionality, and production efficiency standards. This isn't unusual in construction. Let's take structural concrete contractors. Yes, they have architectural and engineering drawings to work to, but they also have engineers on the team who resolve reinforcement, formwork, and pour sequences. The architect establishes the what, and the contractor resolves the how. Basement contractors, facade manufacturers, and glazing specialists, they all work this way. And now joinery is no different. So how can we all use this shift to our advantage? For us cabinet makers, accepting this reality is actually an opportunity, but only if we organize around it. When we invest upfront to resolve the design into a clear scope, we are rewarded downstream. Complete information reaches the factory. We have time for procurement to make sure materials are here. There'll be less interruptions, and most importantly, more throughput. Remember, our production capacity is our most valuable resource. It's where we make our money. Getting to a clear scope early is how we protect it. The alternative is waiting for perfect documentation that never arrives, scrambling halfway through production, taking guesses, and waiting for answers. That's how jobs blow out and our teams burn out. For the builder, early design resolution is a form of risk management. When the joinery scope is resolved months before site measure, it becomes a coordination tool. Services contractors know where the joinery lands, procurement can begin earlier, and architectural alignments can be set out with confidence. For the architect, working with a cabinet maker who seeks to understand design intent creates certainty in the outcome. They don't need to specify every minute detail. Instead, they can stay in their natural lane, focusing on the creative vision, the user experience, the bigger picture. The architect owns the intent, we own the execution, and we come together at the points that really matter. Our operating principle is very simple. The architect establishes the vision, and we resolve it into something that can be built. This means asking questions early, producing shop drawings that test the design against our buildability and functionality standards, and flagging problems before they become issues on site. This upfront work gets us to a clear scope months before site measure, not weeks afterwards. Yes, sometimes it means we have to draw it twice, once to confirm the scope, and another time after site measure. But that cost is worth it for the clarity that it creates downstream and the efficiency boost it creates for our factory. This shift also means developing our team to think like designers, not just technicians. Not just producing shop drawings, but rather translating intent into scope. None of this is evolutionary. I think it's just how complex trades tend to evolve. At some point, the gap between design intent and production ready scope becomes too wide, and the trade organizes itself around this reality. Accepting that joinery has now become a design and construct trade has shaped how we hire, structure our teams, and engage with projects. It's our bet on being able to do more for our customers and build a better business.